There is a version of you that checks the room before it speaks. In the next 12 minutes, I am going to give you 7 rules from a man who did not do that once in 50 years of public life. He was the most powerful man in Athens, and the least popular one. And the city that executed him put up a bronze statue of him within the year. If you take one thing out of this, take this, and put it in the comments so it stays in your head. The record is the audience. Now, here is what the habit costs, because it is not nothing. Every time you soften a true thing to keep a room comfortable, you are not being kind. You are teaching yourself that their comfort outranks your judgment. Do that for 20 years, and you will reach for your own opinion on the day you finally need it, and find that you no longer keep one. You will have spent it, a little at a time, on people whose approval you did not want and could not use. His name was Phocion. He held the office of General of Athens 45 times. Sit with that number, because nobody else in the history of the city came close to it. And Plutarch adds one detail that turns the number into something stranger. He was never once present at the election. Not once, in 45 elections. He did not campaign, he did not attend, he did not put his name forward. The Athenians kept summoning a man who was not in the room, which is remarkable because they did not like him. He opposed the assembly more than any man alive. He argued against nearly every popular war they wanted to fight, and Plutarch is direct about it. Phocion never said or did one thing to win their favor. They called him the good, anyway. Then a Macedonian king sent him 100 talents of silver. The envoys came to the house and found what everybody found there. His wife was kneading the bread. Phocion was hauling his own water up from his own well and washing his own feet. This was the most decorated soldier in Athens. The envoys were so embarrassed by the room they were standing in that they pushed the money at him harder. He asked them a question first. Out of all the Athenians, why is he sending this to me? Because, they said, he judges that you alone are a man of honor and worth. And Phocion said, then let him allow me to go on being one, and take it back. Nobody in Athens saw that money. There was no announcement, no speech about integrity. That is the part people miss about him. He was not performing restraint for an audience. He was declining a purchase. But the moment that explains the whole man is smaller than that, and quieter. He was speaking to the assembly one day, and the room agreed with him, the whole room. The applause came, and it kept coming, and every face in front of him was nodding. And Phocion turned to his friends and asked them seriously, is it possible that I am making a bad argument without knowing it? That is not modesty. Read it again. He had built an instrument for measuring his own thinking, and public approval was a warning light on it. When the crowd loved him, he went and checked his work. Which raises an obvious question about a man like that. What happens to him when the crowd finally gets its hands on him? He was in his 80s when Athens fell apart. Macedonian troops held the harbor. The city was divided against itself. Exiles were pouring back through the gates, and Phocion, who had spent a lifetime telling Athens not to fight wars it could not win, was blamed for the one it had lost. A man named Hagnonides stood up and called him a traitor. They took his command away. Then they sent him to be judged, and he was handed back to Athens, bound, carried through the city on a wagon. They did not try him on the Pnyx, where Athenians tried Athenians. They tried him in the theatre. And the magistrates opened the doors to everybody. Slaves, foreigners, men who had been stripped of citizenship, women who had no vote at all. Plutarch says nobody was excluded. When one citizen stood up and asked that the non-Athenians be sent out so that a legal trial could happen, the crowd howled him down and shouted about stoning the oligarchs. Phocion asked them one question. Do you want to put us to death justly or unjustly? Justly, they said. And how, he asked, will you determine that without hearing me? They would not hear him. Every time he began, the noise took the words. Diodorus, writing separately from Plutarch, says the people at the back could no longer hear anything at all and simply watched his hands move. So he stopped. This is the silence that is actually his. And it is worth being precise about it, because Phocion was not a quiet man. He had a tongue like a knife his whole life, and he used it on anyone who deserved it. What he did here was different. He worked out, in about a minute, that this room was not a room where speech did anything, and he stopped spending it. He tried one more thing. He said the charge was his, and the men standing next to him were innocent, and they should be released. "Why should they be released?" someone shouted. "Because they are your friends," he said. "They voted by show of hands." Plutarch says not one person stayed sitting down. They stood up to do it, and a lot of them put on festival garlands first. Walking to the prison, a man ran alongside him and spat in his face. Phocion did not look at him. He turned to the officials walking with him and asked whether somebody was going to stop this unseemly behavior. Not, "How dare you?" Not a word to the man at all. He addressed the only thing in the situation that had any authority in it, and he let the insult go past him like weather. In the cell, his friends drank the hemlock first, and there was not enough left. The executioner refused to grind more without 12 drachmas, so the old man sat in the cell and waited. And he asked, out loud, whether a man cannot even die at Athens without paying for the privilege. Then he had a friend hand over the money. A friend asked whether he had a message for his son. He did. Tell him to hold no resentment against the Athenians. Outside, it was the 19th of the month, and the cavalry procession for Zeus was riding past the prison. Some of the riders took their garlands off as they went by. Others just looked at the door and cried. The city was holding a festival on the day it killed him. Then it went further. A decree forbade burial in Attica and forbade any Athenian to light a fire for the body. No friend of his dared touch it. A man called Canopian, who did that kind of work for money, carried the body past Eleusis and fetched fire from over the Megarian border, because that fire was not Athenian, and burned him there. His wife was there with her servants. She built a small marker on the spot. Then she put his bones inside her dress and carried them home through the dark and buried them by her own hearth. And what she said over them is the line this film is really about. To you, dear hearth, I give what is left of a good man. Give them back to his family's grave when the Athenians come to their senses. They came to their senses. It did not take long. Once the consequences of what they had done started arriving, Athens gave his bones a public burial, put up a statue of him in bronze, and executed Hagnonides. And here is the part nobody tells you, because it ruins the ending. His last message was that his son should hold no resentment. His son ignored it completely. He tracked down 2 of the other accusers who had run for it and killed them himself. Plutarch closes the life by saying the whole thing reminded the Greeks of Socrates. The same city, the same mistake, the same apology arriving far too late to be worth anything. So, 7 rules, from a man who was right for 50 years in a room that never once thanked him for it. Rule 1. Applause is information about the room, not about the work. Phocion heard a room agree with him and went to check whether he was wrong. That reflex is the whole difference between a man with judgment and a man with an audience. You do not have to distrust praise. You do have to stop treating it as evidence. When something you did lands well, the useful question is not, how did that feel? It is, would this still be right if the room had hated it? If you cannot answer that, you did not have a position. You had a read on the crowd. Rule 2. Refuse the gift that buys your judgment. 100 talents is not a bribe if nobody asks for anything. That is what makes it dangerous. The envoys wanted nothing that day, and the money would have sat in his house doing nothing. Right up until the afternoon, it did something. He saw the price on it, and it was not a price in silver. When something arrives that flatters you, the The question is never whether you have earned it. It is what it will quietly expect you to be later. Rule 3. Do not perform your poverty or your virtue or anything else. He drew his own water with foreign ambassadors standing in the doorway, and there is no evidence he enjoyed it. He did not turn it into a lesson. His wife, asked about her jewelry by a woman showing off her own, said her ornament was Phocion, and that was the end of the conversation. A virtue you narrate is a performance with better branding. If you find yourself telling people how little you need, you have started needing something else. Rule 4. When the room cannot hear you, stop paying for the room. He tried to speak. They shouted him down. He worked out what kind of room it was, and he closed his mouth. And he did not spend one more sentence in it. This is not about being above the argument. Phocion argued constantly, and he was vicious at it. It is about the specific, checkable question of whether speech is doing anything here. Some rooms are not rooms, they are weather. You do not explain yourself to weather. Rule 5. Answer the office, not the man. Somebody spat in his face, and he spoke to the magistrates. He never addressed the person who did it, and that is not passivity, it is targeting. He put his one available sentence where authority actually was. When you are attacked, most of the energy goes to the loudest available target, which is almost never the one that can change the outcome. Find the thing in the situation that has power. Talk to that. Rule 6. Do the work when the vote is already lost. 45 times, and never once at his own election, he kept doing the job for a city that never gave him one afternoon of gratitude, and that eventually killed him for it. He was not owed. He was not waiting to be owed. And that is the only version of this that survives contact with real life. Because if your standard requires acknowledgement to keep running, it is not a standard. It is an arrangement, and arrangements get renegotiated the first year nobody claps. Rule 7. Build for the record, because the verdict arrives late and you may not be there. They killed him in a theatre full of people wearing garlands. Within the year, the same city was standing around a bronze statue of him. He got none of that. He was ash on the wrong side of a border, with a decree saying nobody could light a fire for him. His wife buried his bones by her hearth and told the hearth to hold on to them until Athens came to its senses. And she was right. And he was still dead. You are not building for the room is drunk, and it is wearing a garland, and it will apologize later to somebody who is not you. The record is the audience.